Have you ever sat alone in your living room and wondered if the quiet meant something was wrong with you? Maybe you've looked around and noticed that your phone doesn't ring as much anymore. Maybe the invitations stopped coming, the friends moved away, or the conversations just faded. And then that little voice creeps in. Is it me? Did I do something wrong? I want to pause right here and say this clearly. No, you didn't, and you're not alone. Today, we're going to talk about something that isn't said out loud enough, but should be. We're talking about the truth behind seniors who have few or no friends. And it's not what most people think. In fact, what you're about to discover might just change how you see yourself and your solitude forever. Because here's what I know. People who walk through life with a smaller circle often carry the richest inner world. They're not broken. They're not lacking. They're often the strongest, wisest, most deeply grounded people you'll ever meet. And I want you to know that having fewer friends doesn't mean your worth has gone down. Sometimes it means your standards have gone up. Let's start with something that's often misunderstood. The idea that if you're not surrounded by people all the time, something must be wrong. We live in a world obsessed with connection. Follower counts, party photos, group chats. But let me ask you, how many of those connections are real? How many are built on truth, loyalty, or mutual respect? Some people aren't missing out by having fewer friends. They're avoiding the noise. They're preserving their energy. And they're protecting something far more precious, their peace. That leads me to the first quiet strength that many seniors with few or no friends carry. It's something most people don't even realize is rare. Authenticity. Yes, when you no longer feel the need to perform for others, when you stop chasing approval, what you're left with is the most honest version of you. People who have fewer friends often get there, not because they couldn't make friends, but because they chose to stay true to themselves. They stopped molding their personality to fit in. They stopped saying yes when they meant no. They stopped going along just to belong. And that takes courage. Being authentic means you walk your own path, even if it's a quiet one. You wear what feels good to you, not what's trendy. You speak your truth, even if others don't agree. You hold on to your values, even when they don't match the crowd's. When you choose authenticity, some people will walk away. That's the price. But what you gain in return is peace of mind. And that, my friend, is priceless. Now let's talk about another powerful trait that often blooms when the social circle shrinks. Independence. See, in your younger years, maybe you were surrounded by people at work, at home, in the neighborhood. There was always someone around. But now the house is quieter. The calendar is lighter. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because over time, you may have discovered a kind of freedom that comes from standing on your own 2 feet. You don't rely on others for your happiness. You've learned how to solve problems without asking for help. You've figured out how to make your own coffee, plan your own day, and fill your time with things that matter to you, not because someone else told you to. That kind of self-reliance is rare, and it's a sign of growth, not loss. In a world where many people are terrified of being alone, your independence shines like a beacon. It says, I may be alone sometimes, but I am not lonely. I know who I am, and I know what brings me joy. You don't need to be constantly surrounded to feel valuable. You've found comfort in your own company. And that's something many people will never understand. Let's be honest. There are people half your age who can't sit still for 5 minutes without checking their phone or needing a crowd around them to feel important. But you've learned that solitude isn't something to be feared. It's something to be embraced. Because in that quiet space, you've had time to think, reflect, and grow in ways that constant company never allows. And when you do choose to connect with someone, it's not out of desperation. It's out of intention. You reach out because you want to, not because you have to. And that changes everything. Now here's something that's easy to overlook but incredibly powerful. People who don't have many friends often have very high standards when it comes to relationships. They're not rude. They're not antisocial. They're simply selective. That kind of discernment is wisdom in action. When you've lived enough life, you start to see patterns. You learn who lifts you up and who drags you down. You begin to notice the difference between genuine kindness and polite pretending. And once you've seen those things, you can't unsee them. So you stop accepting people who only come around when they need something. You let go of those who never listen, only talk. You quietly distance yourself from anyone who brings more stress than joy. And yes, that can leave your phone a little quieter. Your table might have fewer chairs pulled up to it. But the people who are left, they're the ones who matter. They're the ones who see you for who you are, not what you can offer them. Being selective isn't about shutting people out. It's about letting the right ones in. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't fill it with weeds just so it looks full. You plant with care, you prune, you protect. And what grows there is something beautiful, something worth keeping. You've earned the right to choose quality over quantity in your relationships. You've walked through enough heartache, enough disappointment, enough lessons to know what love and respect really look like. So now, instead of chasing connection for the sake of connection, you wait for the real thing. You invest in it slowly, and you protect it fiercely. That kind of wisdom doesn't come easily. It's built over time, through experience, and often through solitude. And here's something I want you to take with you as we keep talking. If you recognize yourself in what I've said so far, you're not broken. You're not invisible. You are strong. You are wise. You are full of quiet power. You've made peace with yourself in a way that few ever do. And that, my friend, makes you extraordinary. There's something deeply calming about growing older and no longer needing the noise of the world to feel alive. The parties, the crowds, the endless phone calls, they may have once felt like signs of a full life, but now you know better. A full life isn't measured by how many people are around you, but by how much meaning you find in your own heart. One of the most overlooked but powerful traits that emerges in seniors who have few or no friends is introspection. It's that ability to look inward, to truly sit with your own thoughts, and to get to know yourself on a deep, honest level. You see, when you're constantly surrounded by others, it's easy to get swept up in the outside world. You're listening to what everyone else is doing, thinking, wanting, and over time, your own inner voice gets quieter. But when you spend more time alone, something beautiful happens. That voice comes back, and it speaks clearly. You begin to understand your patterns. You recognize what gives you peace, what triggers your anxiety, what brings you joy, and what weighs you down. You're able to sit in the quiet and hear the truth about what matters most to you, not what the world says should matter. This kind of inner work isn't loud. It doesn't show up on social media. It won't win you applause at dinner parties. But it's the foundation of a grounded, peaceful, emotionally intelligent life. And it's a gift. Because with introspection comes clarity. You know what you want out of the years ahead. You're not chasing someone else's version of happiness. You've started defining your own. While others scramble to fill every hour of their day with noise and activity, you've learned the beauty of a slow morning, a quiet afternoon, a walk where you hear the birds, not a podcast, a journal where you write for no one but yourself. You've probably realized that the most important conversations don't happen between two people. They happen between you and yourself. That's where real growth begins. That's where healing happens. That's where wisdom lives. And let me tell you something. Not everyone can go there. It takes courage to look inside. It takes strength to face your past without running from it. It takes self-respect to say, "This is who I am, and this is what I need moving forward." That quiet strength you carry, the one that allows you to reflect, to grow, to shift, it's rare. And it's one of the clearest signs of maturity. Now, all this introspection leads naturally to another remarkable trait that often blooms later in life, especially for those with fewer social distractions. And that's growth. Not the kind of growth the world celebrates. More degrees, more money, more achievements, but the deeper kind. The kind of growth that says, "I want to become a better human being no matter my age." That's not always easy. Growth can be uncomfortable. It means admitting when something no longer serves you. It means letting go of old hurts, changing patterns that no longer work, and staying open to new ideas even after decades of believing a certain way. But here's the beautiful part. You've already done it. Maybe you used to be more reactive. Now you pause before you speak. Maybe you held on to people who drained you. Now you let them go. Maybe you used to chase approval. Now you seek alignment. Maybe you feared being alone. Now you embrace your own company. That's growth. That's the quiet transformation that happens when you're not constantly wrapped up in other people's opinions. And it's one of the greatest gifts of aging. Because let's face it, the older we get, the more we realize time is sacred. And we begin to ask deeper questions. Am I living a life that reflects who I really am? Do my days align with my deepest values? Am I becoming someone I respect? When you're not surrounded by constant chatter, you can actually hear the answers. And from that stillness comes change. You start making decisions not from fear, but from intention. You prioritize peace over popularity, meaning over noise, truth over comfort. You realize that personal growth doesn't stop at 40. It doesn't stop at 60. It never stops, unless we stop allowing ourselves the space to evolve. And that's the gift of having fewer people tugging at your attention. You finally have room to become. And in becoming, you start to shine. You may not be the loudest person in the room, but when you speak, it carries weight. You may not be chasing every trend, but your presence is timeless. You may not be surrounded by people every day, but you carry with you a sense of calm that others notice, even if they don't know where it comes from. That's the beauty of quiet growth. It's not flashy, but it's powerful. It's that look in your eyes that says, "I've been through enough to know what matters now." It's that soft smile that says, "I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore." It's that steady spirit that says, "I've done the work and I'm still doing it." And let me say this from the heart. If this resonates with you, you're not behind. You're not missing out. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. This season of life may look quieter, but it is rich with purpose. The world may not always see the depth of your character, but you feel it. And that's what counts. So the next time someone wonders why your phone isn't always buzzing or why your calendar isn't packed, you can simply smile because you know the truth. You've traded chaos for clarity. You've chosen growth over popularity. You've honored your own evolution. And that's something to be proud of. There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't always get noticed. It doesn't come with applause or praise, and it doesn't seek attention. But it's there, in the way you carry yourself, in the calm behind your eyes, and in the way you've learned to live without needing to be seen to know your own value. The truth is, not everyone can handle solitude. Many people spend their entire lives trying to avoid it. They keep themselves busy, constantly surround themselves with noise, and chase after relationships, any relationships, just to avoid the discomfort of being alone. But you've walked a different path. You've learned that time alone isn't time wasted. It's time invested in self-knowledge, in healing, in peace. And if that's led to a smaller circle, so be it. Because what you've gained in return is so much more meaningful. When we look at these traits, authenticity, independence, selectivity, introspection, and growth, they aren't signs of isolation. They're signs of strength. Deep-rooted, earned strength. And that brings us to something even more profound. Something that often emerges in seniors who've walked this quiet path for years. Wisdom. Not the kind of wisdom that shows up in textbooks or certificates. No, the real kind. The kind that only life can teach you. The kind that comes from heartache, reflection, change, and years of choosing to stay true to yourself when it would have been easier to follow the crowd. You carry a wisdom that doesn't need to be explained. It's in the way you see through nonsense. In the way you understand people without them having to say a word. It's in the way you've stopped arguing with those who don't want to listen and started pouring your energy into what actually matters. That wisdom is a light. And even if your life feels quiet at times, even if the phone doesn't ring or the house feels still, that light is never dimmed. If anything, it shines brighter in silence. You may not realize it, but your presence matters. The way you carry yourself teaches others without saying a word. Younger people may not always say it, but they see your steadiness. They feel your calm. They admire the way you don't chase approval, but live with intention. And here's something you may need to hear today. Just because your social life looks different now, doesn't mean your life has lost value. On the contrary, it means you've reached a point where you no longer need noise to feel alive. You've tapped into something so many people never find: contentment with who you are. You don't need a room full of people to feel whole. You don't need dozens of friends to feel loved. You found love in quieter places. In your morning rituals, in your memories, in your daily walks, in the little things you've come to cherish. And in those moments, you've discovered the kind of peace that no one can take away. So what if you have few friends? That's not a flaw. It's a reflection of your standards. It's a sign that you've stopped settling for surface-level connection and started valuing depth, honesty, and peace of mind. Some of the strongest, kindest, and most emotionally intelligent people I've ever known lived quieter lives. They didn't need the spotlight. They didn't need a crowd. What they had was depth, integrity, and a heart that had been through a lot, but still stayed soft. And maybe that's you too. Maybe you're the kind of person who's loved deeply and lost, who's been misunderstood but chose not to harden, who's walked away from what no longer served you, even when it meant walking alone. Maybe you've cried in silence and healed in solitude. And maybe, just maybe, you've discovered something that the world often forgets. That being alone doesn't mean being lonely. That solitude can be sacred. That your worth has never depended on the size of your social circle, but on the quality of your spirit. I want you to know, from one soul to another, you are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are not lacking. You are the keeper of hard-earned wisdom, and your presence is a gift. If this message has spoken to you, if it stirred something in your heart or brought peace to your thoughts, I hope you'll take a moment to leave a comment below. I would love to hear your story. What resonated with you? Have you experienced any of these traits yourself? Let this space be a place where your voice matters, because it does. And if this video made you feel seen or encouraged you in any way, give it a like and subscribe to this channel, Strong Elderly Life. Here, we honor your experience. We speak to your truth. And we celebrate the beauty of growing older with grace, strength, and wisdom. You've come this far and you've learned so much, but there's still more joy ahead, still more discovery, Still more life. Here's to living with meaning, to walking your path no matter how quiet, to holding your head high, not because others notice you, but because you notice your own worth. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And remember, there's nothing wrong with having few friends. Sometimes, that's exactly how we grow into the person we were always meant to become. See you in the next video, my friend. Until then, take good care of yourself.